Next on the news, 2,700 students are building their futures at the new St. Francis College.
I'm Jessica Easthope with the state-of-the-art campus that's putting Catholic higher education back on the map in downtown Brooklyn.
And President Biden with a strong rebuke for Russia in his address to the UN General Assembly. Also, how COVID could increase your risk for Alzheimer's if you're over a certain age. Plus, how St. Peter's Basilica will be illuminated with the story of the first pope. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. A new beginning for Catholic higher education in the Diocese of Brooklyn. St. Francis College is celebrating the grand opening of its campus. Students and staff say the new setting means a new sense of purpose. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story from downtown Brooklyn.
Sophia Faustino is proud of her dreams. She says her school backs her all the way. As a sophomore film student, Sophia tends to focus on the visual. And at St. Francis College's new Livingston Street campus, she says it's hard not to.
Everything is beautiful, the decoration is amazing, so I was really excited.
This year, the semester began in a brand new building. The 255,000 square foot space was announced in May of last year, and now 2,700 students are learning in the real thing, making their college experiences all the more hands-on. President Miguel Martinez-Saenz says this is where students come to find their passions.
Our faculty are saying the students are more engaged than they've ever been, and I think it's no coincidence. We create conditions for students to make a living, but we also create conditions for students to make a fully human life. That's what it means to be a Catholic college.
While Sophia says the state-of-the-art classrooms, labs, and common areas are nice to look at, they've also made her and her classmates look inward and examine more than just their schoolwork.
With the new building, it brings this whole sense of a way also to review and renew your faith.
That's one thing in the Catholic faith, you're meant to grow, you're meant to progress further. So seeing this more as a growing period.
Assistant Vice President for Enrollment Management Robert Oliva is an alumni of the school. Now he works to help the kids who are where he was 18 years ago. He's old school, but says now in the new school, using faith to uplift students is a lot easier.
The energy, the excitement, the spirit across campus has been amazing, and we are so thrilled to celebrate with them today.
St. Francis College officials say enrollment is up in part thanks to the new campus that welcomed 900 new students this year. In downtown Brooklyn, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Also tonight, President Biden speaking tough words at the United Nations.
This war is about extinguishing Ukraine's right to exist as a state.
Right now on Currents News, the president rebuking Russia on the war in Ukraine. Just hours before President Biden's address to the UN General Assembly, Russian President Vladimir Putin escalated the war by mobilizing more troops. And there was a veiled threat to potentially use nuclear weapons. But in his address, Biden said Russia has shamelessly violated UN principles with its invasion of Ukraine. After setbacks on the battlefield, Russian President Vladimir Putin responds in a rare national address.
In order to protect our homeland, I think it is necessary to support the decision to partially mobilize citizens of Russian Federation.
The partial mobilization will call up 300,000 citizens in Russia's military reserve. This announcement comes after a successful Ukrainian offensive in the northeastern Kharkiv region. During a speech to the United Nations General Assembly just hours later, President Joe Biden pledged to stand with Ukraine in the face of military escalation.
This war is about extinguishing Ukraine's right to exist as a state. That should make your blood run cold.
The president also calling the Kremlin's move to annex separatist regions in Ukraine a sham and violation of the UN Charter.
Putin claims he had to act because Russia was threatened. But no one threatened Russia.
As more Russian troops are expected to enter the fight, Putin threatened the potential use of nuclear weapons, also raising concerns.
in order to protect our people, in order to protect Russia, we will definitely use all means.
President Biden also talked about how the Russian invasion has affected the world's food supply, and he pledged $2.9 billion in global food security aid. New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan spoke about the UN meetings on his weekly podcast, Conversations with Cardinal Dolan. His eminence focused particularly on the topic of Christian persecution throughout the world, explaining how Christ's believers have continued to keep the faith throughout history.
People of faith will be very loyal and patriotic citizens. They will not say, you control me totally. Right. My absolute allegiance is to the Lord. Right. That was the problem we got into a couple years back during the Roman Empire.
During the podcast, Cardinal Dolan also listed some of the many countries where Christianity is strong and also persecution is high, such as China, Nicaragua, and Nigeria. One world leader in New York for the meetings made a stop in the Diocese of Immigrants. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda visited the Church of the Annunciation of the Blessed Mary in Williamsburg Tuesday. The church has been the spiritual home for Lithuanian Catholics in the Diocese of Brooklyn for more than 100 years. Speaking to the community and answering their questions, Nausėda talked about Russia's invasion and gave his strong support for Ukraine. Pope Francis shared reports from his top envoy who visited Ukraine, and the Holy Father was visibly moved and worried about what Cardinal Konrad Krajewski has seen.
Mi ha raccontato il dolore di questo popolo, le salvagità, le mostruosità, I cadaveri torturati che trovano.
During his visit to Kazakhstan earlier this month, the Pope asked the international community to commit itself to peace. Pope Francis also praying for the people of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic who are dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Fiona. In a telegram, the Holy Father asked the entire Christian community and all people of goodwill to increase solidarity to help those affected by this disaster. More than 1 million people were left without power on the island after the storm brought high winds and dumped 30 inches of rain. The wind and rain from Fiona now battering the islands of Turks and Caicos. The hurricane was a Category 3 as it moved into the area. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says flood levels could rise as much as 5 to 8 feet above normal, but there's been no reports of any damage yet. Catholic Charities USA is working with its partners in Puerto Rico to assess the damage from Hurricane Fiona and is preparing to help people on the island in any way they can. To help them in their efforts, just go to CatholicCharitiesUSA.org. You'll see an area where you can donate to the survivors of Fiona right on their homepage. Now to the migrant crisis. Immigration officials say the migrants' journeys to the U.S. are incredibly dangerous and many times they're deadly. Rosa Flores gives us an inside look at the human trafficking happening at the border.
This is what human smuggling looks like. Migrants gasping for air in this 2015 case. A similar scene unfolded in June when 53 people died in San Antonio in a tractor trailer.
That was the worst smuggling disaster in U.S. history.
Craig Larrabee is the acting special agent in charge with Homeland Security investigations in San Antonio, the arm of DHS that investigates human smuggling, and says migrants have more than death to fear.
The extortion, the assaults, physical assaults, sexual assaults, they're real.
Once in the U.S., migrants are taken to so-called stash houses. From those stash houses,
Un momento.
Migrants are packed in travel trailers.
You're under arrest for human smuggling?
In the trunks of cars, toolboxes, vans, and other vehicles that are sometimes locked shut, like this one last week. That had to be pried open by law enforcement. Migrant deaths so far this year, a record nearly 750, a number already exceeding last year's total of 557. The alleged driver in the deadly June tractor trailer tragedy in San Antonio apparently went through a checkpoint near Laredo. He has pleaded not guilty. It's unclear if the migrants were already on board. While Larrabee says a lot has changed in the business of human smuggling, one thing is constant. Smugglers have no regard for human life.
That was Rosa Flores reporting. In April, the Biden administration launched an effort to disrupt and dismantle human smuggling organizations. So far, nearly 5,000 individuals have been arrested in the United States and across the region. The latest dispute over migrants in the U.S. may end up getting decided in the courts. Most of the migrants that were aboard 2 flights to Martha's Vineyard are now part of a class action lawsuit. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis took credit for the flights. The lawsuit alleges organizers used fraudulent tactics to get migrants on the planes. In our nation's capital, the D.C. Council has approved a measure that creates an office to support migrants. Mayor Muriel Bowser is expected to sign the legislation. The office will provide temporary services to migrants who crossed into the U.S. along the southern border and were then bused to D.C. The Federal Reserve trying to tackle inflation with another interest rate hike. The Fed boosted its key rate by 0.75 percentage point. It's now between 3 and 3.25%. That's the highest level since early 2008. And Fed officials say more hikes could be coming before the year is over, all to control high inflation in the U.S. The New York State Attorney General announcing a civil lawsuit against former President Donald Trump, his children, and his company. Letitia James gave details about the lawsuit that's more than 200 pages. Trump's 3 eldest children, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric Trump, were also named as defendants. James says Trump padded his net worth by billions of dollars by lying about the value of his assets, including golf courses, hotels, and his homes at Trump Tower and Mar-a-Lago.
Claiming you have money that you do not have does not amount to the art of the deal. It's the art of the steal. Over the course of our investigation, we found that Mr. Trump, his children, the Trump Organization, created and used more than 200 false and misleading asset valuations on his statement of financial condition over that 10-year period.
In a tweet, Donald Trump Jr. responded to the lawsuit saying, quote, Letitia James doesn't care about the law. She's a Dem activist who only cares about politics. There's a lot more news headed your way. From sisters to moms, how an empty convent in Los Angeles was repurposed into something to help expectant mothers. Plus, researchers finding a link between COVID and Alzheimer's. Who could be affected? And a new art project at the Vatican with the hopes of making visitors feel closer to the first pope. We'll show you.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
A former convent turned maternity home gets a special blessing from Los Angeles Archbishop Jose Gomez. It once housed religious women. Now it's home to pregnant women who have nowhere else to go. The Archdiocese of Los Angeles partnered with the Christian nonprofit Harvest Home to make it happen. Gina Vides of the Archdiocese's Office of Life, Justice, and Peace joins us now to tell us more about it. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Christine. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. So, Gina, first tell us how this partnership came about. Why did Archbishop Gomez want to get involved?
Here in Los Angeles, we have a high number of families with children that are homeless. We have women that are pregnant and homeless. We have more children than anywhere else across the nation that are in foster care. So we felt that this was a great way to help families in need.
Let's take a look at some of the numbers. According to the LA Homeless Services Authority, there have been almost 70,000 homeless people recorded in the city in 2022. 22,000 of them are women. Now, what resources does the city offer to those women who are pregnant?
So the city offers what is known as emergency Medi-Cal for any woman that's pregnant and needs emergency help. First of all, so that she can see a doctor, right? So she gets all the prenatal care she needs. They also have shelters. We help them out through our Catholic charities, through our St. Vincent de Paul. But now with this new partnership with Harvest Home, we can help house women who were formerly on the street pregnant so that she and her child can get all the help and support they both need.
Yeah, it's not your typical homeless shelter, aside from the fact that it's just for pregnant women and their children. What services do you offer that they can't get at a city-run shelter?
So I do want to share that most of the shelters that are around really don't have, when they house women, it's not women with children. Um, Unfortunately, usually if a woman is or a mother is with her children and she has nowhere to go, usually what happens next is that if the Department of Children and Family Services finds out, her children will be put into foster care, right? Because she doesn't have a home or food to give them. But in this case, women that are pregnant are able to be guided to have a home, a place where she can rest, where she can eat, where we make sure that she has the health care that she needs as a woman who is pregnant, right? The prenatal care, so she has mental and emotional health as well. So Harvest Home really gives them all the wraparound services that a woman who is pregnant needs, let alone food on the table and a clean room, a home where she can bring her child after she gives birth.
So important. And it was good timing for the opening of this home with the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade back in June. Are you seeing more women looking for help right now?
Yes, so women always need help. I think there's something that we've learned and that we know here as a church in Los Angeles is that anytime any one of our sisters feels that she has no choice, that she has no support, we want to remind her that we're here to help her. At a time where Roe is overturned and people are asking, oh my goodness, Roe is gone, are we ready? The answer is yes, Catholics are ready. We've been here for 2,000 years. The church has been helping and supporting women, children, and families from the beginning. Here in Los Angeles, we were the ones that built the first hospitals, orphanages to help women in need. So this is honestly continuing with the church's mission to help serve children, women, and families.
All right, Gina Vides from the Office of Life, Justice, and Peace in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Unvaccinated COVID patients have no antibodies left 1 year after infection. That's according to a new study from the Barcelona Institute for Global Health. Researchers looked at 1,000 COVID-19 patients and found that 36% of them ultimately had no detectable antibodies. The study shows the longest lasting protection comes from a vaccination plus a prior infection. Meanwhile, if you have been infected and you're over the age of 65, you're more likely to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease within a year. That from researchers looking into COVID's effect on your brain. Mandy Gaither tells us more.
An alarming new look at COVID-19 and its effects on the brain. Researchers studied the health records of more than 6 million seniors.
Then we asked, in people over 65, is there an increased rate of new diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease in those who had COVID? And there was.
The study's co-author, Dr. Pamela Davis, says the seniors studied who got COVID-19 were diagnosed in the first year of the pandemic, before antivirals and before most people were fully vaccinated. The researchers found that group had a substantially higher risk of getting a new diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease within roughly a year of COVID-19 compared to those without a documented coronavirus infection.
We were a little bit surprised at how much of an increased hazard there was for developing Alzheimer's disease in such a short period of time.
While COVID-19 has not been found to cause Alzheimer's, Davis says the research shows they are linked. She says inflammation, sometimes caused by COVID-19, may be a risk factor.
There are many possibilities. Of course, the one that's most worrisome is that COVID itself interacts with the brain and either accelerates or tips people over into a dementia kind of a profile.
I'm Mandy Gaither.
Still to come on Currents News, connecting people to their faith through art, a new project at the Vatican that'll catch your eye. And it's one of the most famous pilgrimages. Now a new documentary is focusing on the people who make the journey to Lourdes. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. classic Great Irish Fair will have a new home this year. For more than 30 years, the fair has been held in Coney Island. Now it's getting reimagined, moving to Holy Name Parish in Park Slope in an effort to help raise more funds for Catholic education. According to the fair's director, low post-COVID turnout made the Ford Amphitheater in Coney Island prohibitive. He also said there were transportation problems for fairgoers since the F train did not go to the Brooklyn stop after Labor Day. You can learn more about the fair, which is happening this Saturday, September 24th, in a special pull-out section of this week's tablet. Read about some of the fun activities happening, get a preview of this year's honorees, and find out how you can get your tickets. For these stories and more, pick up a copy of the paper at your local church, and be sure to subscribe to the tablet online at thetablet.org to get future editions sent straight to you. Next month, the facade of St. Peter's Basilica will be illuminated with a projection of the first pope. From October 2nd through the 21st, visitors will see the basilica lit up with a video display that tells the story of St. Peter. The 8-minute video is called Follow Me, the Life of St. Peter. It shows the apostle fishing in the Sea of Galilee, discovering his vocation, and following Jesus.
It summarizes the parable of the life of Simon Peter, from the call in Galilee to the supreme witness of love for Christ on the hill of the Vatican.
Organizers are hoping those who pass through will feel closer to the first pope. The video will be projected every night from 9 until 11 o'clock. And finally, tonight, a new French film is looking at one of the most popular Catholic pilgrimage sites in a new light. Lourdes follows the journey of just some of the 6 million pilgrims who visit the French shrine every year. And as Justin McClellan reports, the documentary isn't just for Catholics.
Lourdes is a small French town of 13,000, but among Catholics it is known worldwide as the site of repeated Marian apparitions beginning in 1858. The French documentary film, Lourdes, follows some of the pilgrims who travel to the sacred place each year. Its directors say that while many movies have been made on Lourdes, none previously focused on the experience of those who travel there, which they heard from those on the ground. We have a friend who is a volunteer in Lourdes, who takes care of the sick there once a year. One day he returned from his pilgrimage, and he told us about what was happening there in Lourdes. Filmmakers haven't taken the time to show interest in the pilgrims or the reasons that they decide to come to Lourdes and accompany them along the way, so we immediately had this idea for the film, believers or not. The film's directors are not Catholic, something they say gives them a unique outsider's perspective to view and present the journeys of pilgrims to a wider audience. So much so that their film was nominated for a César Award, the French equivalent of the Oscar, for Best Documentary. They say that making the film changed their view on what the famous pilgrimage destination means to those who travel there, something they hope their film will convey. It is true that when you think of Lourdes, you often think of the miracle. It's a bit of a cliché to think only of the miracle. What we were struck by was seeing that very few people come for a miracle. They come to feel less alone, to feel the warmth of other people, to help each other.
That was Justin McClellan reporting. The documentary Lourdes is currently available on Amazon Prime Video. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.